Hey guys, it's Ndoplex, and unless you've been living under a rock, you will be well aware that Borderlands 4 is very quickly approaching. This game drops in just a couple days, and for me guys, it has been a bit of a struggle trying to figure out which Vault Hunter I want to play. So in today's video, I'm just going to give you guys a quick breakdown of each of the 4 Vault Hunters so far, and give you a quick breakdown of all of their action skills, some of their abilities, and just a general background check on each of the Vault Hunters, so that you can go in well informed as to which one you think you might like to play. So first up, of course, we have the Siren. Borderlands' quintessential character, the Siren. However, in this game, she is going to focus a little bit differently. Now, Vexa the Siren started her origin as a humble checkout lady in a supermarket when it was Mercenary Day. Marcus had called everyone in, and everything got a bit too much and overwhelming. Her siren powers awakened, and she decided to hack and slash and slice up the entire store. That's Vex's origins. It's a pretty interesting origin story, a little bit random, I won't lie to you, but here we are with Vex. Now, Vex kind of fills a sort of necromancer role inside the games. She has a lot to do with summoning minions. She has one skill tree dedicated to summoning these phase clone minions. That skill tree is going to be the Dead Ringer skill tree. You can either choose a Spectre or a Reaper for a close range or long range clone, and these clones that spawn will match the element that Vex is currently using. So if you're using a corrosive weapon, you spawn these clones, they will be dealing corrosive damage. The Reaper minions deal melee damage and will also taunt enemies, and the Spectre ones deal gun damage and is a static kind of summon fixed to an individual location, so the placement of these is going to be quite important. Vex's second action skill is going to be Incarnate, where when she activates her action skill, she's going to create this explosion that deals damage to all nearby enemies and fully restores her HP. This is kind of like an active effect. While you're in this action skill, Vex can use this Eldritch Blast to deal massive damage in a sort of point straight line projectile shot. And this projectile shot is once again going to follow the element of her weapon currently. And while in this form, she is going to gain massively increased movement speed. Now, while in this Incarnate action skill, dealing regular gun damage is going to restore the Eldritch Blast cooldown. So say you fire one off, then you're going to want to do a bunch of shooting with your weapon to get the cooldown of that Eldritch Blast back, so you can fire another one of those off. You can also end this action skill a little bit early to refund some of its cooldown, which can be pretty handy if you've run out of enemies to kill. For Vex's third action skill, it is going to be her Phase Familiar, her Trouble Tree. Now, this is her giant cat that she will summon. This is a permanent minion, and this action skill teleports Trouble to a location, dealing damage in the area, and then Trouble transforms into a badass. Think of this as very similar to Flak's Gamma Burst skill. It's a very similar action skill to that. And the action skill tree is very much focused on giving Trouble sort of buffs. Trouble's damage will once again match the element type to your weapon, a common theme with Vex. Now, Vex's main strengths are going to be kind of minion and pet-based damage. Her bleed and kinetic damage is going to be super strong, as well as her kind of crit hits and status effects. She's very similar to Flak in Borderlands 3, even though she is this game's Siren. So if you really enjoyed Flak in Borderlands 3, I suggest taking a look at Vex. As for our second Vault Hunter on the list, we have Raffa. Now, Raffa's origins were he was a Tediore soldier, and under the horrible rule of his Tediore general, he kind of got abused a little bit, didn't really enjoy his time there, and decided to fight back and escape. So Raffa was brought up on a planet with very, very low gravity. So on a planet with regular gravity, he kind of just can't move at all. So fully relies on this exosuit, this Tediore exosuit that he has on him, to allow him to move around and summon all kinds of cool Tediore tech. And for Raffa's first action skill, he has something called Apophis Lance. He equips an Apophis Lance in his offhand, which allows him to fire a piercing ordnance blast through all enemies. Now, this ordnance blast can be customized with the elements due to different augments, and has a few different charges to it. Now, if you end the action skill without using all of these charges, some of the cooldown will be refunded. So once again, if you run out of enemies while this action skill is active, you can cancel it and refund some action skill. Now, instead of just activating Raffa's Apophis Lance instantly, if you actually hold the action skill, you are going to get this charged up lance shot, which is going to deal increased damage, have a bigger projectile side and projectile speed, but this is going to use all of your charges at once, so you really want to be kind of selective when you do use this. For Raffa's second skill tree, he has the Peace Breaker cannons. These are some shoulder-mounted cannons which fire at enemies in front of him, and these deal specifically kinetic gun damage. Now, there is some stuff in his action skill that allow these to use different elements like shock and corrosive, but primarily at their base, they deal this kinetic gun damage. Now, Raffa can once again end this action skill a little bit early, which is going to partially refund the action skill, and this is quite a cool kind of passive thing to have. Reminds me quite a lot of Zane's shoulder cannons, but with much more interesting effects. You can shoot laser beams out of it, you can shoot rockets out of it, you can shoot regular kind of gun damage. It's a pretty cool skill, and it kind of just pairs well as you're running and gunning anyway. Not too much to do with this action skill, it's just kind of there and helping you deal damage to a lot of enemies out in front of you. As for Raffa's third action skill, and this is personally one that I'm very excited for, are his arc knives. Now, Raffa chucks his guns away and equips these arc knives, these blades that deal massive damage and mark enemies whenever they damage them, causing these marked enemies to take increased damage. Now, Raffa can perform regular melee attacks with his arc knives. He can dash forward and perform a kind of AoE shock melee. And if you unleash his Blade Fury ability, this will deal shock damage to all of the marked enemies and end the action skill early. So a little bit of a trade-off there. However, there are a few really interesting things in Raffa's skill tree which are going to allow you to pretty much have almost infinite uptime in arc knives. Essentially, after your action skill ends, you will stay in your arc knives action skill but just progressively lose health. So a really interesting trade-off. However, when you deal melee damage, you can actually lifesteal with the melee damage and gain health. So providing you're killing enemies, you should theoretically be able to stay in this arc knives mode for a very long time, which I am super interested in. It reminds me a lot of kind of Krieg's action skill with his mania tree and his kind of badass capstone, allowing him to pretty much have infinite uptime in melee. Raffa is looking really, really cool. Now, some of Raffa's strengths, he is going to be very good at kind of corrosive shock and fire damage, pretty good with those elements specifically. His gun and ordnance damage should also scale very well with his Apophis cannon. He has a lot of skills that are going to benefit movement speed, and of course a lot of skills that are going to benefit melee damage. This guy is going to have some absolutely awesome melee builds with him. I would say for similarities, he's definitely kind of similar to Zane, but also Zero and I would say Krieg as well to an extent, especially Krieg's melee tree should act fairly similarly to Raffa's melee tree as well. So if you enjoy any of those characters, be sure to check out Raffa because he's looking to be a lot of fun. Now for our next Vault Hunter, and my personal pick, I think, going into Borderlands 4 is going to be Amon, the Forge Knight. Amon's backstory is the fact that he was raised in a Vault monster worshipping cult, and when this vault was opened, essentially the creature killed everyone he loved and did some pretty good damage to Amon as well. So now he's got a personal vendetta against every single Vault monster going and just wants them all taken out. So that's kind of his mission in life, and he's got these absolutely badass forge weapons to do it with. Now, Amon's first action skill is going to be Onslaughter, and Amon overloads his fist, gaining shield regeneration, massive incendiary damage, and movement speed. And if you activate this action skill again, you will do a melee rocket punch, dashing towards the enemy, dealing a ridiculous amount of incendiary and melee damage combined in like a short range AoE cone in front of you as soon as you hit the enemy. And this is also going to cause them to stagger. Now, you can't stagger bosses. It is noted that you can't stagger bosses, which I guess would be a little bit OP. But kind of think of it like Salvador's Fistful of Hurt. You are going to stagger a lot of enemies with this, and even badass enemies can be staggered, to which, as you'll know if you've played Salvador, the Fistful of Hurt is an amazing skill just for some utility. So this is looking to be a very awesome action skill. And there are things down this action skill tree that allow you to combo these Forge Fists into one another, get some ridiculous cooldowns on them. And also you can do things like changing the actual element type of this fist to frost damage further down the tree. Yeah, Amon is looking to be pretty awesome. As for his second action skill, this is going to be Scourge. This is where he equips his Forge Shield that is going to absorb all of the frontal damage dealt to Amon. And as he's absorbing damage, you are going to be building up a Vengeance meter. Now, this Vengeance meter, when you've absorbed enough damage, you can actually fire out this whip that deals cryo damage to all enemies in a line in front of you. So essentially we are blocking with our shield, absorbing damage, and firing like a massive AoE cryo whip out in front of us to deal damage to all enemies in an area. This skill is going to be amazing for tanking for your team, drawing a lot of aggro, and just general really good survivability. I've actually got a build on Amon's Scourge skill tree linked in the description down below. It's just a theory craft of mine that I was looking at, and it's looking to be a really cool build, focusing massively on a lot of his Scourge and Frost damage. So yeah, this kind of functions similarly to Athena's Aspis skill tree, but with a lot more juicy things piled on top of it. And not only can you hold the shield out in front of you, you also have a secondary function which allows you to place a massive fire wall of a shield. So a static wall that you can kind of hide behind. You can shoot through it, but enemies can't shoot you. So again, kind of similar to like Zane's bubble shield and stuff like that. This is going to provide some great utility and some much needed survivability, I think. As noted by a lot of the developers, Borderlands 4 is said to be the hardest in the franchise so far. Now for Amon's third action skill, we have the Crucible. Amon is going to ready these axes that can be thrown, and they can also be picked up off the ground to refund some of the cooldowns. So you can pick up and throw these axes. You have a choice of two. You have a shock and a cryo one to begin with, but further down the action tree you will be able to throw like incendiary axes, and you will also be able to combine these axes in two and throw like one giant axe, a lot of things like that. So very, very cool. Any enemy damaged by these axes is going to be primed for like a detonation. So you will hit them with a cryo damage axe, and then they are primed with cryo damage. So then if you kill this enemy, they will do like a big AoE cryo explosion, which is of course going to deal some absolutely monstrous damage to the enemies nearby. So yeah, Amon is all about summoning all of these different forged weapons. You've got axes, swords, shields, whips, you name it, Amon's got it, and he is looking to be a really, really cool character. Now, for some of his strengths, Amon's going to focus massively into Fire, Ice, and Shock. Those are his bread and butter. Also, his Onslaughter skill tree is looking to have some very nice melee damage augments within it. So, focusing on melee damage with Amon is definitely going to be a great idea. Also, Amon's got a lot of things that dip into Ordnance damage. Now, Ordnance damage I haven't really talked about too much, but it's essentially the new kind of grenade / rocket system. It's all lumped into one thing called Ordnance, and Amon has a lot of skills that are going to boost Ordnance damage. So any kind of heavy weapon damage, grenade damage, all that sort of stuff, Amon is going to be amazing at dishing that out in vast quantities. And in general, his survivability seems to be the best of the 4 Vault Hunters so far, with of course his Scourge shield allowing him to tank for the team, and also taunt all the enemies to kind of pull towards you. So Amon, of course, being the big boy, he's going to be quite similar to characters like Brick with his Onslaughter tree, but obviously much more in-depth than Brick's regular punching skill tree was. He's also quite similar to Athena's Aspis shield kind of tree, and also if you've ever played Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, his Crucible action skill tree where you're throwing out these axes is quite similar to the Thor's hammer that you throw out with the Clawbringer skill tree in Wonderlands. Feels very similarly to that. So if you like any of those characters, Amon is definitely going to be a great pick for you. And of course, this guy's a Viking Forge Knight who's also a poet. I don't know, man. What's not to love? Amon is definitely going to be my pick. For our fourth and final Vault Hunter, we have Harlowe. Now, Harlowe was a former Maliwan combat scientist who was basically developing pretty much all of Maliwan's tech, it seems. And unfortunately, she wasn't quite getting the recognition that she deserved, so she decided to break off with Maliwan and do her own thing, stealing back some of her inventions that she'd already made, and also developing some new interesting inventions as well. She is also a Traunt, which is worth noting, because you might know Traunt from Borderlands 3. There were a bunch of Traunts, all Maliwan kind of combat soldiers, and yeah, it seems like she's got a pretty big family history, and not a very good family history, as they seem to like to kill each other. Regardless, Harlowe's action skills are as followed. First, we have Chroma Accelerator, which is going to fire an unstable energy pocket from her Chroma Accelerator cannon, and this energy pocket is going to pass through enemies and deal massive AoE cryo damage to all enemies it passes through. You can actually activate this action skill again, which is going to explode the action skill, dealing radiation damage. So amazing action skill here. You're going to fire this ball through the enemies, freeze them all, and then explode with a big radiation explosion. Pretty cool here. Also, due to Harlowe's passive, anything that gets affected by any of her action skill abilities gets linked by this sort of effervescent color scheme. They all get linked, think ties that bind on Amara, and they all kind of share a portion of the damage. So Harlowe's going to be really good at like AoE crowd control. I don't necessarily see her as the one that deals the most boss damage, but as far as like AoE damage and crowd control damage goes, I don't think there's going to be anyone better than Harlowe for this. As for her second action skill, this one is really funny. It's very similar to Maya's phase lock or Amara's phase grasp, where you will pick up the enemies in this kind of bubble, and then you can also activate this again to kind of throw enemies at the floor or throw enemies at different enemies. It's a really cool action skill. Basically, like I say, Amara's phase lock, but allowing you to chuck the enemies all around the battlefield, and you can pick up multiple enemies at the same time. Of course, this is going to debuff them with that effervescent kind of coloring, and any enemies that are affected by this all get linked, so it kind of has an automatic ties that bind feature like Amara does, but just built into her regular action skill. Very, very cool. As for her third action skill, we have Flux Generator. She's going to throw out this Flux Generator, which is like an energy field, kind of like Flax Gravity Snare. Now, I have kind of poo-pooed on Flax Gravity Snare in the past. Personally, not one of my favorite abilities, but Harlowe's is looking to be much, much better. If you throw it down on the floor, it will actually allow you to revive friendlies in a nearby area. So that's, of course, really, really cool. And also, it's going to entangle all the enemies, which is this effervescent effect that's going to put on all the enemies, so is going to link all the damage that you deal to enemies to all of the other enemies. Also, when you throw this down, not only is it going to revive your allies, but it's also going to give them a nice overshield. So this can be used as like an offensive crowd clear, or it can actually be used very effectively as a defensive kind of res your allies and give them a good amount of survivability. So a pretty cool action skill here. I'll be interested to see how this pairs with Amon. You put Amon's big shield up, and then you have a Harlowe dropping a Flux Generator behind, giving everyone overshields and making sure that no one dies and they can all be rezzed. Very, very cool here. And she's got some interesting stuff in her action skills, allowing this Flux Generator to dish out stuff like cryo damage over time and a bunch of other different effects as well. Now, her main strengths are going to be that AoE damage and kind of control. She's going to be very good at controlling the battlefield. Cryo and radiation damage seem to be her bread and butter. All of her action skills are very much focused on cryo and radiation. Her ability to be able to revive allies and stuff like that makes her very good in a team scenario, although I don't think she is going to struggle at all in solo play. And also, if you actually look at her skill trees, she seems to be able to get some of the most ridiculous action skill cooldowns you've ever seen. So it looks like we're going to be able to spam her action skills a massive, massive amount. Very similar playstyle to kind of Maya and Amara, the Sirens, but also dealing a massive amount of cryo damage as well. She is kind of the Siren of Borderlands 4. Vex is straying away from the traditional Siren format that we see, kind of controlling the battlefield. That seems to be Harlowe's job in this game, and she seems like she's going to do it very, very well. So if you enjoyed playing Sirens in the previous game, I would definitely check out Harlowe. She's going to be one to look out for. But with all that said and done, which Vault Hunter will you be playing in Borderlands 4? Please let me know in the comments down below. I've also got a link to my Discord in the description down below, where we are going to have a bunch of different builds. I'm now partnered with Mobalytics, so you can head over there and check out some of the builds that I've already made. I've already made one for Amon, as he's going to be my primary focus, but I will have builds on every single character coming into Borderlands 4, so be sure to check those out. Make sure to like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you for the release of Borderlands 4. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.